Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, we're diving into something pretty crucial for us here at Scyther and for everyone in Australia. It's open government data, or OGD, as we'll be calling it.
Yeah, you might already have an idea of why OGD is important, but we're going to really lay out why it's so vital for what Scyther's doing here in Australia.
And get this, you're going to come away with some serious aha moments. Like how OGD is seriously changing things, shaping the future.
We're not just theorizing here. We're going to look at the real-world impact, and our guide for this deep dive is going to be a key report.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Building Trust in the Public Record from the National Archives of Australia. Oh, and we'll be pulling in some extra insights from other sources, too, just to give you the full picture.
Exactly. Think of this as like your crash course on OGD. And look, I know you guys are busy, our listeners. We're all busy.
Yeah.
So we're going to be efficient, but we won't skimp on the good stuff, the important stuff.
Yeah, the juicy details.
Exactly. We'll break down the most fascinating parts and make sure you get why this matters to you.
All right, so to start off, let's just address the elephant in the room. What exactly is Scyther, and why are we so into this whole open data thing? For those who haven't heard of us yet, it's pronounced Scyther, and we're a company that's all about innovation, using data to make a real difference.
And that's where OGD comes in.
Yeah.
This report, it really emphasizes how open data is all about making sure everyone has access to information that's authentic and that's reliable.
Yeah, for Scyther, it's like having, a superpower. We can make smarter choices as we navigate this Australian market. Mm-hmm. Like having this, high-powered lens to see things clearly and avoid those nasty pitfalls.
That makes sense.
It's like having a cheat sheet to success.
Right.
But hold on, it's not just about Scyther and us. This report points out 3 core goals, and they underline why open data is a game changer for all Australians. First off, having solid, reliable info is like the bedrock of good decision-making, right? Whether it's a government body creating policies or a small business figuring out their next steps.
Totally.
Yeah.
You can't really make sound judgments when you're in the dark.
Nope, absolutely not.
So what's the second goal this report's highlighting?
Okay, so this is about building trust.
Okay.
Building trust in the public record, that's the name of the report, and it really hammers this point home.
It does, yeah.
It emphasizes how individuals and organizations need that assurance.
Yeah.
That their information's being handled securely and ethically, right? When Spire works in Australia, we got to show that we're responsible with data. Mm-hmm. And for everyday Australians, the same thing applies.
It's about transparency, accountability, right? Knowing the information you're getting is accurate?
Absolutely.
And hasn't been messed with.
Precisely. That leads us to goal number 3, facilitating digital transformation. This aligns perfectly with Spore's DNA,
Yeah.
And Australia's push towards a more digitally connected and efficient future.
Yeah, so the Australian government is definitely on board with this digital shift. But the report doesn't try to hide anything?
No, not at all.
It acknowledges that there are challenges ahead.
It's definitely a journey, not a sprint. One of the big hurdles highlighted is the need for stronger information management capability across the board.
Right.
This goes hand in hand with nurturing a real culture of open data.
So it's not just about having the data there.
Right.
It's about knowing how to use it and using it the right way.
Yeah.
Ethically.
Exactly. That's where things like training come in.
Right.
Robust data governance frameworks.
Yeah.
Clear policies about how we share data, all of that. And that's something Scyther thinks about deeply as we weave OGD into how we do things in Australia.
Now, I was thinking it'd be great to go from theory to practice.
Yeah.
The report mentioned some examples, but we've also brought in some really interesting cases from around the globe that kind of make it all click.
Yeah, seeing OGD in action makes its potential crystal clear. One of the most amazing stories comes from a place you might not expect. Canadian mining? Ever heard of the Goldcorp Challenge?
Yeah, the name rings a bell, but remind me.
All right, picture this. Goldcorp, a mining company. They were struggling to find gold at their Red Lake mine. They had tons of geological data, but they were hitting a wall. Instead of hoarding that data,
right,
they did something super bold. They launched this competition called the Goldcorp Challenge, put all their data online, offered a prize to anyone who could help find the gold.
They just, gave away their data? That sounds kind of risky.
It was a huge gamble. They knew they needed fresh eyes, and they were willing to trust in open data.
So what happened? Did they, strike gold?
The results were incredible. Geologists, mathematicians, even computer graphics experts from all over the world jumped in. They used Goldcorp's open data and identified over 100 new gold deposits, a lot of which Goldcorp had totally missed.
Wow.
They found millions of ounces of gold, brought a struggling mine back to life, and proved that open data can drive innovation like crazy.
That's wild. It really shows how important it is to have different viewpoints.
Yeah.
And how being open can unlock so much potential. Makes you wonder what other breakthroughs are just sitting there waiting in data sets that haven't been opened up yet.
For sure. And talking about valuable resources, let's shift gears from gold to something else that's essential. Water.
Okay, you got my attention.
Yeah.
What does water have to do with open data?
Well, the Victorian Water Resources Data Warehouse is the perfect example. It shows how open access to data can totally change efficiency and access to vital information. Before this data warehouse, accessing water data in Victoria was a pain, expensive, and slow. But once they made the data openly available online, usage shot up and costs dropped like crazy. This made sure that everyone could get crucial information. Researchers, businesses, everyday citizens.
Right.
Everyone could make informed decisions about water.
That's a really great example of how open data makes a real difference in people's lives. Not just in theory, but in ways that are real, tangible. You know?
Exactly. And it highlights how OGD can make services better by putting information right in the hands of those who need it.
Now, while Australia is definitely making progress with OGD, I think it's helpful to look at success stories from other countries to see what's possible.
Absolutely, yeah. The UK, for example, has been a pioneer in this space.
Oh, they have. There are these two platforms that I find so fascinating, FixMyStreet.com and TheyWorkForYou.com.
Oh, yeah.
These sites are all about empowering people, making things transparent.
They're fantastic examples of how open data can get people involved, make governments more responsive to their citizens. FixMyStreet.com, it lets people report problems like potholes or busted streetlights directly to their local council. Simple and effective way to get things fixed, hold authorities accountable.
It's like cutting through the bureaucracy,
Yeah.
giving citizens a direct line to report problems. What about TheyWorkForYou.com? How does that one work?
TheyWorkForYou.com pulls back the curtain on what's happening in Parliament. You can see how your elected representatives have voted, read their speeches, even contact them directly. It makes things transparent and helps voters make smarter choices.
It's like giving citizens a front row seat to the whole political process. These examples are so inspiring. They really get you thinking about the possibilities for Seether in Australia.
Right.
What kind of innovative solutions could we develop using open data?
Yeah.
What impact could we have on everyday Australians?
There's so much potential there. But before we get too far ahead of ourselves, let's define a crucial concept that underpins all of this. Public sector information, or PSI. PSI. It's like the building block of open data. You know, we've been talking about what OGD is, but PSI tells us where this data is coming from.
Yeah, makes sense.
Where it all begins.
And actually, a couple of our sources have some really clear definitions of PSI.
Oh, yeah.
942 Houghton and Gruen Transparency and Productivity.pdf and Government 20 Task Force Report.pdf both say it's any information that the government creates or collects through spending.
That's pretty broad.
Yeah, it is. It covers so much. Weather data, economic stats, scientific research.
Social trends.
All of that and more. It's like this huge pool of knowledge just waiting to be tapped into.
A gold mine of information.
Yeah, and like you mentioned earlier, the big idea behind OGD is that PSI should be open by default, freely available, easy to reuse.
It's about making information accessible that used to be locked away. And the potential benefits, they're huge.
Yeah.
Our sources lay it all out. Let's break it down into three main areas: economic growth, democratic values, and better services.
All right, let's start with economic growth. How does having open access to PSI lead to a stronger economy?
Think about it from Seether's perspective. Open access to PSI can really boost innovation, right? It gives businesses the raw data they need to create new products and services. We could use this data to team up with Australian businesses, create custom solutions for the market here, and contribute to growth.
So it's not just about Seeker doing well, it's about creating a positive ripple effect for the entire Australian economy.
Exactly. It benefits everyone. And it's not just businesses either. Open access to PSI strengthens democracy by making the government more accountable and getting citizens involved. When people have access to information about how their government works, they can hold their leaders responsible and really participate in the democratic process.
Right. It builds that sense of transparency and trust between citizens and their government.
Exactly. And last but not least, open access to PSI can lead to much better services. When information is easily available, it helps citizens make informed decisions and get the services they need more efficiently. And for companies like Seether, it means we can develop solutions that are more targeted and effective, which benefits everyone.
So it's a win-win-win situation.
Across the board. But as we mentioned earlier, no system is perfect. Our sources do bring up some important concerns about the practical side of implementing OGD, especially when it comes to privacy, copyright, and those legacy systems we talked about.
Those are some big concerns, and they're things that Seether takes very seriously as we navigate this open data world. Let's tackle them one by one, starting with privacy and confidentiality. This is a huge issue, especially these days with all the data flying around. How do we balance the benefits of open data with the need to protect people's privacy?
Building trust in the public record talks about this directly. De-identifying data before releasing it is super important. It's about making sure that we remove any personal information so people can't be identified. This is non-negotiable if we want to keep public trust and follow Australian regulations.
That'll be done, no two ways about it. What about copyright issues? How do those play into open data?
We can't forget about copyright law. It still applies to a lot of the information that the government holds. It's about finding that balance, encouraging open access, but also protecting the rights of creators.
So it's not a free-for-all. There are definitely rules we have to follow.
For sure. And then there's the challenge of legacy systems. As you mentioned before, these old, closed systems can be a real pain when it comes to implementing OGD.
Yeah, it's like trying to force a square peg into a round hole.
Exactly. Switching from those outdated systems to modern open data platforms takes time, money, expertise. It's a challenge Seether will probably face too, and we're definitely thinking about it as we expand in Australia.
So it's not just a matter of flipping a switch. It needs to be carefully planned and executed.
Absolutely.
But there is good news. Our sources offer some really valuable solutions and strategies to get past these challenges. Government 20 Task Force Report.pdf, Chief Data Officer Information Pack 0.pdf, and Open Public Sector Information from Principles.practice.pdf all have some helpful advice.
Okay, great.
Yeah. One really important resource is the Office of the Australian Information Commissioner, or OAIC. They're like a guide for organizations figuring out OGD.
Oh, okay.
They provide advice and support on things like privacy and data security.
So they're like a lifeline for anyone who feels overwhelmed by all this open data stuff.
Exactly. And our sources also talk about how important strong data governance frameworks are. These frameworks are basically a set of rules and procedures for managing data the right way, making sure it's handled responsibly and ethically.
So important.
This is something Seether's going to be focusing on too, as we incorporate OGD into our own workflows.
It's a fundamental part of using data responsibly.
Absolutely. And finally, our sources highlight the need for investment in data infrastructure and skills development.
Yeah, that makes sense.
This means having the right technology and the right training to make OGD work effectively.
Right. It's not just about having the policies, it's about having the tools and the people to make it all happen.
It's about walking the walk, not just talking the talk.
Exactly.
Now, we've covered a lot today, but I think we need to circle back to where we started. Why all this matters for Seether and for everyone in Australia.
Right, good point.
This deep dive hasn't just been about understanding a concept. It's been about exploring a powerful tool for making positive change. So as we wrap up our deep dive into open government data in Australia, I hope you're feeling as pumped about the possibilities as I am.
Yeah, it's been a wild ride exploring all this and really getting into that building trust in the public record report. But what's even cooler is seeing how those ideas actually work in real-life situations.
For Seether, this information is like a treasure map, as we look to really make our mark in the Australian market. Just imagine the potential here, using OGD to really understand Australians.
Yeah.
Tailoring our services to what people actually need.
Exactly.
Maybe even partnering with local businesses to come up with innovative solutions.
The opportunities for growth and making a difference are huge.
Absolutely.
And this report gives us a solid framework for navigating this whole new world.
But let's be real. There are always challenges when you're doing something new.
Yeah.
We've talked about how important data privacy is, figuring out copyright stuff,
right,
and investing in the infrastructure and the skills we need to actually use OGD the right way.
Yeah, those are all key points.
For sure. And those challenges, they're not impossible to overcome.
Yeah.
The report, along with all the other sources we've talked about, they offer some real practical solutions and strategies.
They do.
To tackle them head on.
Yeah, for sure.
We've seen how other organizations have made OGD work, and we can learn a lot from them. It's about taking those lessons, adapting them to Australia and making our own path.
Absolutely. And that path doesn't have to be a lonely one, you know? Collaboration is key.
Oh, definitely.
So, Arthur, we're excited to partner with Australian businesses, government agencies, communities, everyone, to push this open data thing forward together.
It's about building a whole open data ecosystem where everyone benefits. Now, as we wrap things up, I want to leave you with something to think about. A question to spark your curiosity.
Okay, love that.
Given everything we've talked about today, the challenges, the opportunities, what role could CETHR play in moving the open data agenda forward in Australia? How can we use OGD to not only reach our own goals as a business, but also make a real difference for Australians? I want you to really think about this, explore the resources we mentioned, and join us in creating a future where open data empowers everyone. Thanks for joining us on The Deep Dive.